The heavy, suffocating scent of stale rain always pooled deep inside the narrow concrete alleys behind the high school. A sudden violent kick to the ribs abruptly sent Ronan crashing hard into a pile of discarded wet cardboard boxes. The leader of the delinquents sneered viciously while cracking his knuckles right above his helpless victim. Ronan simply spat out a thick glob of crimson blood onto the pavement without uttering a single word of protest. His trembling hand reached inside his torn uniform pocket to ensure his mysterious medicine vial remained entirely unbroken. He knew exactly what catastrophic horrors would unleash if he ever missed a single daily dose of those heavy blue pills. The bullies laughed mockingly at his silence before delivering one final devastating blow straight to his abdomen. Minutes later, the gang finally walked away, leaving the broken boy alone in the cold, pooling darkness. He dragged his aching body upright, his muscles screaming in protest with every single micro-movement. For a fleeting split second, a brilliant flash of cold silver light rippled across his dark irises. Forcing the surging power back down, he tightly gripped the small glass container and stood completely upright. The long walk back to his neighborhood was nothing but an endless blur of neon lights and agonizing pain. He eventually turned down a crumbling side street that led directly toward his family's dilapidated apartment complex. A single comforting golden light shined brightly from the small third-floor window of his home. Inside, his elderly grandmother sat quietly on a traditional woven mat, carefully preparing a steaming bowl of herbal tea. Strange, intricate protective symbols were meticulously painted in faded ink along the borders of the wooden entrance door. Ronan unlocked the door quietly, desperately trying to conceal his fresh facial bruises with his tattered collar. Her sharp, ancient eyes immediately noticed his injuries, and a profound look of deep sorrow washed over her face. She gently beckoned him over, her frail hands reaching out to apply a soothing, cool salve to his cheek. She whispered softly that the dark blood inside them must remain hidden from the watchful eyes of the world at all costs. Ronan uncapped his vial and swallowed the bitter suppression pill, instantly feeling a freezing numbness wash through his veins. For a brief moment, the heavy, chaotic humming inside his bones finally quieted down into absolute serenity. Suddenly, the temperature inside the tiny room plummeted so drastically that their breath visibly turned to thick ice. The intricate ink symbols on the front door began to bubble violently and burn with a sickly green fire. A massive, explosive force shattered the entire door inward, sending sharp wooden splinters flying through the air. Out from the rolling black smoke emerged a towering, demonic creature covered in jagged obsidian armor. Ronan froze in absolute terror as the entity's overwhelming malicious pressure instantly pinned him to the floor. Stepping directly in front of her grandson, the grandmother held up her wooden amulet as glowing runes surfaced on her skin. The shadow stalker let out a deafening metallic screech that shattered every glass object in the apartment. She unleashed a bright barrier of golden light, momentarily halting the monster's brutal advance. With a single effortless swipe of its second claw, the beast instantly shattered her magical defense into pieces. The sharp obsidian talons cut deeply across her chest, throwing her frail body violently against the back wall. Ronan screamed out in pure, unadulterated agony as he watched her slide helplessly down to the floor. Before he could even move, the creature lunged forward and impaled Ronan straight through his chest cavity. Coughing up an immense wave of dark blood, Ronan felt his consciousness rapidly slipping away into the void. The demonic entity coldly extracted its claw, letting Ronan's limp body drop into a widening pool of blood. Through half-closed eyes, he watched the creature roughly grab his unconscious grandmother and vanish into a swirling vortex. Deep within his dying heart, a terrifying primal fury suddenly shattered the icy chains of the suppression medicine. His spilled blood began to burn like boiling magma, flowing backward into his fatal chest wound. The mortal wound in his chest violently fused back together, leaving behind an intricate, glowing scar shape. Ronan's fingers clenched so tightly into the floorboards that his newly grown claws shattered the wood completely. He slowly rose to his feet as an immense, overwhelming pressure of pure dark energy erupted from his body. When he finally opened his eyes, the silver brightness had completely transformed into a malicious, burning crimson stare. The ancient, monstrous curse dormant within his bloodline had finally broken its chains, demanding absolute retribution. The crimson mist swirling through the ruined apartment began to sink deeply into Ronan's open, bleeding wounds. A sudden violent convulsion racked his entire body as the shredded muscle fibers in his chest tore themselves apart. Within seconds, the agonizing pain gave way to an unnatural, boiling warmth that rapidly knitted his flesh back together. His skeletal structure popped and elongated, expanding his short frame into a tall, imposing silhouette. Ronan pushed himself up, planting a newly calloused palm firmly onto the cracked concrete foundation. He stood completely upright, staring blankly at the empty space where his grandmother had been brutally taken. Feeling an explosive current of foreign energy pulsing through his veins, he realized the suppression pills no longer held any power over him. The next morning arrived far too quickly, forcing him to walk the familiar path to school under a completely new guise. Students whispering near the entrance gates immediately stopped talking as Ronan stepped into the main courtyard. Nobody could reconcile this tall, sharp-jawed young man with the frail outcast they had spent months tormenting. From the end of the corridor, Beijing leaned against a locker cluster, surrounded by his usual gang of heavy-handed delinquents. The lead bully spat his chewing gum onto the floor and stepped forward directly into Ronan's path. Beijing raised his voice, demanding to know where the pathetic loser had bought his new elevator shoes. Ronan did not slow his pace, his expression remaining completely unbothered as the distance between them closed. Infuriated by the total lack of fear, Beijing swung a heavy, telegraphed right hook straight toward Ronan's jaw. The entire corridor gasped as Ronan caught the massive fist effortlessly with a single open palm. Beijing tried to pull his arm back, but Ronan's grip felt like an unyielding vice forged from solid iron. Slowly, Ronan began to squeeze, applying just a fraction of the monstrous strength dormant inside his bones. A sharp crack echoed through the hallway, followed immediately by a pathetic, high-pitched scream from the gang leader. Ronan looked down at his former abuser, his voice cutting through the silent room like shards of breaking ice. He warned the trembling delinquent that if he ever saw his face again, the consequences would be permanent. The remaining lackeys quickly grabbed their groaning leader and scrambled backward down the stairs in terror. Watching from a hidden vantage point on the upper floor balcony, a lone figure adjusted his tactical earpiece. The observer noted into his device that the target's physical capabilities had abnormally surpassed human thresholds overnight. Unaware of the surveillance, Ronan spent the rest of his day mapping out the locations of nearby demonic signatures. He could feel a strange telepathic pull dragging his senses toward an abandoned warehouse district on the edge of town. As soon as the final bell rang, he sprinted past the city gates, leaving the mundane world behind him. The air grew heavy and rancid with the unmistakable smell of sulfur as he approached the rusted industrial complex. A sudden scuffling sound from above made Ronan stop dead in his tracks, his ears twitching at the frequency. 3 low-tier crawling demons materialized from the shadows of the roof, their multiple red eyes fixated on him. Instead of panicking, Ronan let out a low, mocking chuckle that echoed through the empty courtyard. The first monster lunged downward, its razor-sharp claws extended to slice him into ribbons. Ronan sidestepped fluidly, his movements so fast they left a literal afterimage in the darkened air. With a brutal single stroke, he slammed his fist into the creature's skull, shattering it instantly into black dust. The remaining 2 beasts recoiled in shock, realizing their supposed prey was an absolute apex predator. Ronan glared up at them, his eyes burning with an unholy crimson and silver fire that paralyzed them completely. Before they could flee, he leaped into the air, ready to wipe them out and demand answers about his grandmother. Suddenly, a barrage of high-tech plasma bolts shot from the darkness, vaporizing both monsters before Ronan could reach them. Heavily armed soldiers clad in futuristic black armor materialized from the surrounding shadows, weapons trained on him. Stepping out from behind the tactical unit, the observer raised a hand, locking eyes with the newly awakened teenager. A low guttural growl echoed from the shadows as a captive lesser demon stepped into the light, its multiple eyes glowing crimson. Ronan clenched his fists, feeling the residual warmth of the dark aura pulsing erratically beneath his skin. The mysterious figure stepped forward, lowering his hand as the hum of tactical weapons slowly powered down. He introduced himself as Director Vance, the leader of a highly specialized anti-demon defense group known as the Aegis Bureau. Ronan demanded immediate answers regarding his kidnapped grandmother, his voice cracking with raw emotion. Director Vance explained that her disappearance was directly tied to the ancient monstrous lineage flowing through Ronan's own veins. Realizing that cooperation was his only lead, Ronan agreed to board the heavily armored transport vehicle. The vehicle navigated through the dark city streets, eventually descending into a massive subterranean facility hidden deep beneath a skyscraper. Ronan stared through the reinforced windows at sprawling laboratories filled with advanced weapon schematics and containment cells. A rogue operative named Liram observed Ronan from a distant balcony, her eyes narrowed with deep suspicion. Director Vance led Ronan into a vast reinforced training arena constructed entirely of dense tungsten steel panels. Heavy mechanical gears ground together as a massive iron gate slowly began to rise across the room. Vance ordered Ronan to unleash his dormant powers, stating that survival was the only way to prove his worth. The demon lunged forward with terrifying speed, its sharp claws slicing through the air inches from Ronan's face. Striking the hard ground heavily, Ronan rolled to his feet, gasping for breath as his old injuries flared up. The beast turned rapidly, its massive tail sweeping across the floor to knock Ronan completely off his feet. Thrown against the reinforced wall, Ronan coughed up blood, realizing his human body could not withstand another hit. Images of his grandmother being dragged away flashed through his mind, igniting a spark of pure fury within his soul. Deep inside his bloodline, the ancient curse responded to his anger, unleashing an explosion of dark energy. Ronan's fingernails lengthened into razor-sharp black talons as his physical proportions instantly grew sturdier. The demon rushed forward once more, but this time, Ronan perceived its blinding speed in slow motion. Extending his newly empowered arm, Ronan caught the demon by its throat, slamming it forcefully into the ground. With a final crushing blow infused with dark aura, he neutralized the beast entirely, leaving it unconscious. Up in the observation booth, the agency scientists stared in absolute disbelief at their wildly fluctuating energy monitors. Liram watched the display with deep concern, confirming her darkest fears about the agency's dangerous obsession with monster DNA. The dark aura receded back into Ronan's skin, causing him to collapse to his knees from sheer exhaustion. Director Vance entered the arena, handing Ronan a confidential folder containing old classified intelligence reports. Opening the file, Ronan discovered vintage photographs of his grandmother wearing a tactical military uniform decades ago. The documents revealed she was once the chief researcher of the Bureau, specializing in ancient demonic seals. Vance stated that a rogue faction within the High Demons wanted her knowledge to shatter the boundaries between realms. Armed with this new truth, Ronan demanded to know where the next potential demonic hot zone was located. Meanwhile, Liram slipped into the restricted basement levels, using a stolen security keycard to open a hidden laboratory. Inside, she found rows of glass stasis tubes containing human subjects fused with monstrous mutating body parts. She realized the Aegis Bureau was not just fighting monsters, but actively trying to mass-produce hybrid bioweapons. Suddenly, the main computer screen locked, flashing a bright red security breach warning across the entire facility. Back in the arena, the lights abruptly cut out, plunging Ronan and Director Vance into absolute darkness. A loud metallic screech echoed through the facility's ventilation shafts, followed by the sound of glass shattering downstairs. Over the intercom, a panicked security guard screamed that the high-security containment units had been compromised from within. Heavy footsteps began to echo just outside the arena doors, accompanied by a thick, suffocating aura of pure malice. Heavy footsteps began to echo just outside the arena doors, accompanied by a thick, suffocating aura of pure malice. The massive steel blast doors buckled outward as an immense pressure from the hallway threatened to tear them off their hinges. Standing amidst the billowing smoke of the ruptured corridor was Liram, his eyes twisted with a dangerous, unstable frenzy. Liram held aloft a glowing master security drive, exposing the agency's secret archives detailing horrific human-monster DNA mutations. He shouted that the very organization sworn to protect mankind had been breeding the same nightmares they claimed to hunt. With a single definitive strike upon his control console, Liram bypassed every security firewall in the entire underground complex. Deep within the subterranean holding sectors, thousands of heavy containment cell locks simultaneously hissed open. Hundreds of captive demonic entities opened their glowing red eyes, sensing their sudden, unhindered freedom. Chaos erupted instantly across the facility as rogue monsters tore through the reinforced steel walls of their prisons. Alarms wailed throughout the upper levels, ordering an immediate evacuation of all remaining research personnel. Liram laughed hysterically as a tidal wave of grotesque, shadow-cloaked demons flooded into the central arena area. Ronan stood his ground alone in the center of the stadium, completely surrounded by an army of snarling beasts. A massive four-armed demon lunged forward from the darkness, its razor-sharp talons aiming directly for Ronan's throat. Instead of fleeing, Ronan took a deep breath, reaching deep within his core to shatter his remaining psychological restraints. A massive explosion of crimson and silver energy erupted from Ronan's body, vaporizing the attacking beast instantly. Liram's eyes widened in utter disbelief as he watched his prized specimen disintegrate into harmless ash. The ancient monstrous power dormant within Ronin's bloodline fully awakened, altering his physical form completely. A majestic, terrifying crown of dark energy formed above his brow, signaling his ascension as the supreme entity. Ronin vanished from sight in a fraction of a second, leaving behind only a trail of shattered concrete. He reappeared instantly in front of a pack of charging demons, striking them down with terrifyingly precise martial arts. Crimson blood aura coated his fists as he systematically dismantled the front lines of the invading horde. Realizing the threat, Liram frantically ordered the remaining monsters to combine their forces against Ronin. Several colossal demons merged together, creating a singular titanic monstrosity covered in jagged bone armor. Ronin looked up at the towering leviathan with absolute calm, completely unfazed by its mountain-like proportions. He remembered his grandmother's warm smile and realized this was the moment to fulfill his ultimate destiny. Ronin leaped high into the air, ascending toward the sky like a silver comet piercing through the darkness. The colossal bone demon swung its massive arm, attempting to swat him out of the air like an insect. Ronin manifested a massive ethereal sword composed entirely of condensed silver bloodline energy. With a single sky-cleaving slash, he severed the Titan's arm and sliced its massive body cleanly in half. Liram watched his ultimate weapon dissolve into glittering cosmic stardust, his grand scheme completely ruined. Ronin descended slowly from the heavens, landing gracefully right in front of the trembling rogue operative. Liram scrambled backward in terror, looking up at the boy who had now surpassed all human and demonic limits. Ronin demanded the precise location of his kidnapped grandmother, his voice echoing with absolute authority. Broken and defeated, Liram pointed weakly toward a hidden reinforced vault deep underneath the central stage. Ronin leapt down into the chasm, using a burst of aura to gently blast the locked vault door off its hinges. Resting inside the pristine glowing chamber was his grandmother, safe and entirely unharmed by the chaos. She opened her eyes and smiled warmly at him, recognizing that her beloved grandson had finally found his true purpose. Ronin knelt beside her and embraced her tightly, the dark markings on his skin fading away into complete serenity. With the corrupt agency exposed and the demon threat permanently neutralized, a new era of peace dawned upon the world. No longer a helpless outcast, Ronin stood tall on the highest peak, ready to protect mankind as its ultimate savior.